morning Year 5 and welcome back. So today we are going to continue our work on lines. Here are yesterday's answers for you. Please be aware I haven't worried too much about which way round the letters are when I've named a line, and I don't want you to worry too much either, but your answer might not look exactly like mine, but it still could be correct. Right, here is your Fluent in 5 for today. Pause the screen, give yourselves 5 minutes. Okay, your answers are here. So hopefully you remembered that you had to change this fraction so that they had a common denominator. And remember, whatever you do to the denominator, you must also do to the numerator. So 3/8 would become 6/16, and 3/16 add 6/16 is 9/16. We recapped on perpendicular lines yesterday. We are moving on to parallel lines today. So again, the first bit is some recap, then we're moving on a little bit, and then we'll do some practice. Okay, so perpendicular lines were ones that met at a right angle. Parallel lines do not meet at all. Now a line, the definition of a line actually means a line that goes on forever. We just look at a segment of a line. But no matter how long you carried the line on for, a parallel line or two parallel lines would never meet each other. They stay the same distance apart. So I've heard sometimes people describe them as being like either side of a railway track, but they stay the same distance apart, and we could go on forever. So just to put it, to do an example, if I were to draw these lines, they're not touching at the moment, but if I were to carry those lines on, and I'll do it with a dotted line to show you, eventually they would cross each other. So they are not parallel lines. Parallel lines, I can draw parallel lines easily by using either side of my ruler. Parallel lines are always the same distance apart. So if I were to measure the distance here, it would be the same throughout. Okay, now we do use a symbol again for parallel. It's this. It's two forward slashes on the next to each other. Okay, so AB is parallel to CD is written like this, but we also can use an arrowhead on the line. Now they might be a filled in arrow, or it might be an open arrow. For example, on my example earlier, I might do an arrow there and an arrow there to show that those two lines are parallel to each other. Okay, and if I had another set, I would put two arrows on them. We'll come to that a little bit later. Okay, as with perpendicular lines, parallel lines are everywhere. Okay, you can probably look around you wherever you are now and see lots of examples. So how can we tell if lines are parallel? Well, with squared paper, it's nice and easy because the squares will help you. If you have a look at these lines, there's two squares between the lines all the way along. It's always 2 unit squares away. So KL is parallel to MN. OP and QR are parallel lines, just like I did with my ruler. They are always 2 unit squares apart. ST and UV are not parallel, because if you look at this point of the line, S and U are 3 unit squares away from each other, whereas here, T and V are only 1 unit square away from each other, so they're not parallel. And number 5 is that example I showed you, that eventually they will meet, therefore they cannot be parallel. So have a look then at these. What I would like you to do is pause and have a go first, and then unpause where I'll go through the answers. Okay, so these were parallel because there were 3 unit squares in between them. So we could say that OP is parallel to QR. These are not parallel. There are 3 unit squares there and only 2 at this end, so that's not. These two lines are parallel because there are 3 unit squares all the way along. So WX is parallel to YZ. Okay, and here then, I'm going to draw the triangles on this time to show you. Line AB is parallel to line CD like that. We also have AD is parallel to BC. Okay, so you would draw that with arrows going along the line. This shape here, the parallel lines were these two, FG and IH, and yep, that's it. And then this shape has got 3 sets. It's got those, and it's got these, and it's got these. Okay, hopefully you spotted all of those. How do we draw parallel lines? Well, quite simply, we're going to count the squares. Okay, so if I start with my line and then I want to draw a parallel line, I can start at one point. So if I start at point A and I go across 1, and I go down to B and go across 1, and I draw those points up, I will get a parallel line. Okay, if you want to, you can pause and have a really thorough read through of that. I think that's probably all we need as a little bit of a recap. Slightly harder if it's a diagonal again, but it works in the same way. So 1 point in the line, I'm going to go 2 squares across. Then my other point of the line, I'm going to go 2 squares across. And then if I join those lines up, I end up with a parallel line. Okay, same here. Go to point E, move it along 3, do the same to point F, and you end up with a parallel line. Okay, hopefully you've got a copy of this activity for you to have a go at. I'm just going to whiz through it if you want to pause and have a go first. Okay, a parallel line to A then. Well, it could be anywhere, it could be underneath, it could be over the top, but that's just an example. Could have that one for B with 5 unit squares between. This one, I'm just going to go 2 unit squares from the top, 2 unit squares across from the bottom, and then join those up. I'm using a pen so you can see it, but if possible, do use a nice sharp pencil because that will make it easier and certainly more accurate than mine. Okay, so here's D. I'm going to go up 1, and then from the other end, I'm going to go up 1. Don't forget, as with any shape, sometimes you might just find it easier if you turn the page around to suit you, and of course that is absolutely fine. Right, there is a little bit of a challenge here if you want to pause and have a go at it, if you're feeling that's quite straightforward. Here are your practices for today. So similar to yesterday, but we're looking for parallel lines today. There's the first couple of pages. And a bit more. And the last one. Okay, so we've done quite a lot, but most of it hopefully was a recap for you. And now hopefully you've reminded yourself and have got a really good understanding of parallel and perpendicular lines, ready for us to move on tomorrow.